Annihilation of Caste by Baba Sahib Ambedkar. 16. To me, this Chaturvarna with its old labels is utterly repellent, and my whole being rebels against it. But I do not wish to rest my objection to Chaturvarna on mere grounds of sentiment. There are more solid grounds on which I rely for my opposition to it. A close examination of this ideal has convinced me that as a system of social organization, Chaturvarna is impracticable, harmful, and has turned out to be a miserable failure. From a practical point of view, the system of Chaturvarna raises several difficulties which its protagonists do not seem to have taken into account. The principle underlying caste is fundamentally different from the principle underlying Varna. Not only are they fundamentally different, but they are also fundamentally opposed. The former is based on birth. How are you going to compel people who have acquired a higher status based on birth without a reference to their worth to vacate their status? How are you going to compel people to recognize the status due to a man in accordance with his worth who is accompanying and occupying a lower status based on his birth? For this, you must break up first the caste system in order to be able to establish the Varna system. How are you going to reduce the 4,000 castes based only on birth to the 4 Varnas based on worth? This is the first difficulty which the protagonists of the Chaturvarna must grapple with. There is a second difficulty which the protagonists of Chaturvarna must grapple with if they wish to make the establishment of Chaturvarna a success. Chaturvarna presupposes that you can classify people into 4 definite classes. Is this possible? In this respect, the ideal of Chaturvarna has, as you will see, a close affinity to the Platonic ideal. To Plato, men fell by nature into 3 classes. In some individuals, he believed more appetites dominated. He assigned them to be the laboring and trading classes. Others revealed to him that over and above appetites, they have a courageous disposition. He classed them as defenders in war and guardians of internal peace. Others show a capacity to grasp the universal reason underlying things. He made them the lawgivers of the people. The criticism to which Plato's Republic is subject is also the criticism which must apply to the system of Chaturvarna insofar as it proceeds upon the possibility of an accurate classification of man into 4 distinct classes. Chief criticism against Plato is that his idea of lumping of individuals into a few sharply marked off classes is a very superficial view of man and his powers. Plato had no perception of the uniqueness of every individual, of his incommensurability with others, of each individual forming a class of his own. He had no recognition of the infinite diversity of active tendencies and combination of tendencies of which an individual is capable. To him, there were types of faculties of power in the individual constitution. All this is demonstrably wrong. Modern science has shown that lumping together of individuals into a few sharply marked off classes is a superficial view of man not worthy of serious consideration. Consequently, the utilization of the qualities of individuals is incompatible with their stratification by classes, since the qualities of individuals are so variable. Chaturvarna must fail for the very reason for which Plato's Republic must fail, namely that it is not possible to pigeon men into holes, accordingly as he belongs to one class or the other. That it is impossible to accurately classify people into 4 definite classes is proved by the fact that the original 4 classes have now become 4,000 castes. There is a third difficulty in the way of the establishment of the system of Chaturvarna. How are you going to maintain the system of Chaturvarna, supposing it was established? One important requirement for the successful working of Chaturvarna is the maintenance of the penal system, which could maintain it by its sanction. The system of Chaturvarna must perpetually face the problem of the transgressor. Unless there is a penalty attached to the act of transgression, men will not keep to their respective classes. The whole system will break down, being contrary to human nature. Chaturvarna cannot subsist by its own inherent goodness. It must be enforced by law. That without penal sanction the ideal of Chaturvarna cannot be realized is proved by the story in the Ramayana of Rama killing Shambhuka. Some people seem to blame Rama because he wantonly and without reason killed Shambhuka. But to blame Rama for killing Shambhuka is to misunderstand the whole situation. Ramraj was a Raj based on Chaturvarna. As a king, Rama was bound to maintain it. It was his duty, therefore, to kill Shambhuka, the Shudra, who had transgressed his class and wanted to be a Brahmin. This is the reason why Rama killed Shambhuka. But this also shows that penal sanction is necessary for the maintenance of Chaturvarna. Not only penal sanction is necessary, but penalty of death is necessary. This is why Rama did not inflict on Shambhuka lesser punishment. This is why Manusmriti prescribes such heavy sentences as cutting off the tongue or pouring of molten lead in the eyes of the Shudra who recites or hears the Veda. The supporters of Chaturvarna must give an assurance that they could successfully classify men and they could introduce society in the 20th century to reforge the penal sanctions of Manusmriti. The protagonists of Chaturvarna do not seem to have considered what is to happen to women in their system. Are they also to be divided into four classes, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra? Or are they to be allowed to take the status of their husbands? If the status of the woman is to be the consequence of marriage, what becomes of the underlying principles of Chaturvarna, namely, that the status of a person should be based upon the worth of that person? If they are to be classified according to their worth, in their classification to be nominal or real, if it is to be nominal, then it is useless, and then the protagonists of Chaturvarna must admit that their system does not apply to women. If it is real, are the protagonists of Chaturvarna prepared to follow the logical consequences of applying it to women? They must be prepared to have women priests and women soldiers. Hindu society has grown accustomed to women teachers and women barristers. It may grow accustomed to women brewers and women butchers, but he could be a bold person who would say that it will allow women priests and women soldiers. But that would be the logical outcome of applying Chaturvarna to women. Given these difficulties, I think no one except a congenital idiot could hope and believe in a successful regeneration of the Chaturvarna. The end.